Hello everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations. You with Simon today, and we're going to be doing another subscriber chart reading. As always, I'm super excited to be sharing with you astrology, and in particular the way that the soul actually experiences its life, in the way that this is about desires, this is about coming into a life and understanding the core intention as to why, why are you here? So with evolutionary astrology and the use of the tool, we can uncover that looking at the birth chart, giving us a deeper understanding of what that story is about. Okay, so as always, we start with Pluto, and we know that from this chart over here, Pluto sits in the 9th house of the astrology chart, and in the constellation Virgo at 27 degrees. Now, this is a really interesting dynamic because, firstly, the 9th house Pluto soul, in other words, what's the intention of the Pluto in the 9th? It's basically to come into this lifetime, and your deepest sort of empowerment path comes through understanding what your truth is. Okay, it's looking at life and saying, okay, well, this cosmological system says that this is what life is about, and it's based on their direct experience of things, and there's a whole entire library of knowledge that's available, and the Pluto 9th house soul merges with that, right? It wants to learn deeply what is life at a level that is about creating a philosophy, a cosmological system that you feel supported by. Now, naturally speaking, with this type of dynamic, the tendency is to look at different belief systems and different cosmologies and have a very wide perspective on what the nature of truth is about relative to each individual, or an individual country, That's why Sagittarius, or the 9th house, has a direct correlation to different cultures, because it's the different cosmological truths or philosophies or way of life that each area, resonates with, vibrates to. So within the context of the 9th house, the soul comes into this lifetime and says, I'm born over here, but I feel a restlessness. I'm not really sure why it is that I'm really here, but I know that I can't really directly connect. I feel out of place, which naturally creates this underlying feeling of, okay, I need to explore. And so this is the core of Pluto in the 9th house, is exploration with the desire to understand your truth through the different cosmological systems that exist, and eventually come to what is natural for yourself. Now, along your path, you might meet a lot of people that have systems of truth or belief systems or ideologies or religions that claim to know that this is the way to find the meaning of life. And, each system has its own validations and securities and emotional identities that are linked with those. And what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to be flexible enough to know which truth is available for you and which one doesn't, which truth resonates and which one doesn't. So the evolution here is the polarity point. It is looking at life and saying, okay, there is a diverse way of seeing life, and I can learn from the different ways that life can be perceived, For you, because you're part of the Pluto and Virgo generation, this is about coming into a lifetime or coming into a generation in which the cycle of evolution says we're just about to start a new cycle of deep individual expression. And the reason why we know that is because the relationship between Uranus and Pluto in the chart are very close together, although Uranus is in Libra. Okay, now I'm going to get back to that. I just want to look at the nodes of the moon first, just to kind of give an overall perspective of what type of evolutionary axis the soul has been moving through. So if you have a look, the 8th house is where the south node sits, and it's also in the constellation Virgo, and the moon is conjunct the south node. So there's quite a lot of activity on the south node, including what in evolutionary astrology would look at the moon being the present moment-to-moment reality. In other words, how you meet each moment with your sense of identity. And so for this soul, with the moon conjunct the south node, this is a kind of deja vu. It's like I've been here before. I've experience these things, or I have this feeling that I know what these themes are about, but I'm still experiencing them. And that's natural to have your conscious sense of identity and the deep psychological conditioning that you get imprinted from when you come into the life, the parents, the society, the types of identities that show up for you. And for you, this is around cycles of empowerment, cycles of who is empowered, who is deeply connected to attachment where there is feelings of trust, trust and intimacy. These are all core themes that are associated with the South Node in the 8th house. And now that you have the moon there, your own personal identity is deeply investigating and inquiring the context of why these certain attachments are in existence. Now, when you've got Virgo being the planetary or the sign that's ruling it, you can see here that there's a very acute need for attention. So this is not just the South Node in Virgo and the moon conjunct it. It's the moon conjunct the South Node, representing psychological dynamics of the past that are here to be relived in order to experience new ways of being. But Virgo is also adding the element of this is something that is deeply, deeply associated with a growth cycle. In other words, your life has a tremendous amount of growth that's going to come out of the moon in the 8th house, the deep investigation, the inquiry. One of the things that can actually materialize out of this dynamic, because of the deep sort of inward focus to penetrate into the layers of psychological motivations and understandings, is psychological paralysis. Getting stuck in one place and getting over-analyzing it to the point where it becomes too big and you lose sight of what is occurring. And that's why I think that if you look at the chart over there, you can see Mercury's in Capricorn. It's actually trining the moon. Mercury's also trining the South Node. And the reason why I'm pointing to Mercury is because it's the planetary ruler of the South Node. All right? It's the energy that conditions the moon in the South Node, and actually Pluto as well. And that sits in the 1st house Capricorn. So we know that part of this dynamic has to do with developing self-reliance within one's own communication, learning to recognize that you're redefining yourself in a completely new way, because Capricorn correlates to redirection. It correlates to initiating new cycles because it's a cardinal sign. And you can see that this is on the ascendant. So this is a big aspect of the past that the soul is trying to work with in this lifetime, And this has a lot to do with really breaking away from expectations potentially that are rooted in attachments where deep service has been taking place, but the balance of power regarding that service might have been distorted, So with Aquarius being the sign that rules the sun and Venus, and they're closely conjuncted together, the element of needing to break away from patterns of the past to initiate new relatability and expression around that relatability is coded in the soul. And it's around, drawing one's own personal boundaries, Mercury in Capricorn, establishing a unique way to be, moon conjunct Venus in Aquarius, sun conjunct Venus in Aquarius, but also allowing there to be a deep psychological state of healing. And this is the North Node in the 2nd house in Pisces, and its planetary ruler being Neptune, which sits in the 11th house in Sagittarius. So this has a lot to do with really getting in touch with one's own values, right? The 2nd house, but spiritual values, right? The meaning of life through one's own sense of identity. So breaking away from patterns of the past, resolving whatever core attachments that have led to deep crises, and then freeing yourself to initiate a deeply self-reliant way of living that is in alignment with your own personal truth, and not one that is attached to the psychological complexes of others. So the final thing that I want to point out to the chart over here, of course, is Saturn sitting in the 4th house in Taurus, which again adds to this lifetime of self-reliance around one's own internal values, and those values linked with what you consider to be healthy and not healthy, and then orientating your reality in that way so that whatever experiences you have are linked with deep empowerment that's linked with your own survival and the sustainability of your own life, basically. Okay. So I hope that you got a lot out of this conversation today, my Patreon subscriber. Thank you very much for supporting us. And for those of you that are watching this video on YouTube and been following the series, I hope that you got a lot of value out of this. And of course, until next time, have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.